My name is Sam. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Fairygodboss. And Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Our mission is to improve the workplace by increasing transparency. We offer a ton of great free resources like anonymous company reviews, job listings, articles, virtual recruiting events, and so much more to help you succeed throughout your careers. Before we get started today, we will be taking questions at the end of today's webinar. So if you have questions, leave them in the Q&A. You can leave them as yourself or anonymously. We will get to as many as possible. In addition, we'll be recording today's webinar and sending it out in a follow-up email. So you can feel free to rewatch it if you missed anything, or if you just want to share it with a friend. Here with me today is Jelena. Jelena is an award-winning career fulfillment coach, speaker, author, and Forbes Coaches Council contributor. She's passionate about helping conscious, aspiring professionals thrive in the careers they love. And with 25 years in international recruitment and education management and CTI coaching qualifications, she brings together unique insights into how recruiters think and how personal coaches work. Thanks so much for being here today, Jelena. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sam, for inviting me. I'm very privileged and honored to be here. And have such a wonderful captive audience. I can see at the moment we're at around 150 attendees. So good morning and good afternoon to you, wherever you're based. It is 5 p.m. in London, UK, where I'm actually based and have been based for many years. So today, before I launch into the presentation, I'd like to invite you to have a piece of paper and a pen handy to take down some notes and also participate in a few exercises that I will give you to do. My presentation is around 40-45 minutes, so we will have plenty of time for Q&A afterwards, I believe. If you prefer to type on your computer, of course, that's perfectly fine as well. I would like you to, before I start, to think just maybe for 5-10 seconds of one particular intention that you have for what you want to get out of this webinar, of this presentation today. This normally helps my clients with focus. And then also at the end, you can check and see, oh, actually, yeah, I got my answer, or perhaps no, this hasn't been addressed. And then you can ask us in the question and answer session. So I hope you have written down that intention for today. And I will dive into the presentation. My name is Jelena Radonic. I call myself a career fulfillment coach, and I will explain why that is. And my brand and my consultancy is What Work Career Coaching. So the reason why I'm here speaking to you is because I'm a career coach, and I call myself a career fulfillment coach because I care deeply about my clients, and actually everyone, not just my clients, being fulfilled with their work in what they do. Throughout my career in international recruitment over many years, and starting my early career in Japan and then moving to the UK and so forth, I've seen many different career stories, and I was always curious to find out, why is it that some people are successful and fulfilled? Other people could be successful and actually not fulfilled, or they can be neither successful nor fulfilled, even though they have all had probably very good prospects at the start. So that's when I started looking into different causes of what makes us fulfilled or not. Hence, my brand is called What Work, and you will hear me use the word work more often perhaps than career, because whether you are a solopreneur, self-employed, a freelancer, an employee, you have your own business, whatever it is that you do, it is work after all that we do. And unlike animals, in the animal kingdom, animals also work, but with very practical aim of building their habitat or perhaps protecting their young ones. We as humans want to find meaning and purpose, and you will see throughout my presentation that I will be touching upon that a lot. which maybe is not very usual when people talk about personal branding, but I will show you how that is an integral and very important element of personal branding. So throughout my career, I've seen tens of thousands of CVs or resumes, many applications. I interviewed also many people, either for my own teams or on behalf of corporate clients, as well as on behalf of top business schools, because in my last full-time employment, that's what I did. I was pre-selecting top candidates for executive MBA and MBA and master's qualifications. As Samantha mentioned, I'm also a CTI qualified coach. Coaches Training Institute are based in the US, and they're the biggest and probably most reputable provider of coaching education. I also love writing and speaking in public, so I publish for Forbes, Thrive Global, Medium, and I'm also a co-author of a book called Joy Recipes for Abundance, which actually reached #1 on Amazon in category Women and Spirituality. Now, I mentioned another important word to me, which is spiritual work. So in addition to my commercial experience and business experience and experience in recruitment, I've also done a lot of personal development work. I worked with a spiritual teacher for about 5 years. And I also worked with some really big, amazing teachers such as John DeMartini, Deepak Chopra, and so forth. So I bring all of that into my coaching and make it probably quite an unusual blend of life coaching, career coaching, business coaching, and personal development, and even spiritual practice. The logos you can see here are some of the companies where my clients have landed roles either during or after coaching with me. So without further ado, let's dive into personal branding. So I'm pretty sure that amongst you, and now we have quite a few attendees. I'm just trying to see the number 175. Wow, thank you all for coming. I'm sure some of you are marketeers, so you deal with brand and branding probably every day. So I would like to invite you to think, first of all, just for a second, what is a brand? How do you understand branding and brand, not just in terms of personal branding, but just as a whole? You may want to jot down a couple of words or ideas that come to mind. So when we discuss brands in general, things like identity, belonging, differentiation come to mind. And while I'm not going to go into defining brands deeper, which is something I do more in my personal branding masterclass, I want you to think about why generally it is important to have a brand, whether you're a company or an individual. So think about the themes of belonging, the themes of being different or distinguishing yourself from others, and themes of identity. Brand is also a promise. Often that definition is used in a commercial sense, where we talk about a company, a service, or a product, and what is it they promise. So going forward, I would also like you to think about what is your personal promise as a person and a professional. What is it that you promise with your brand? So I hope that this is sparking some thinking, some food for thought, and I'm stopping deliberately so you can write down some ideas. So looking at some of the definitions that I extracted, we can see that brand has to do a lot with reputation. It's got to do with what people say about you. I love this one by Amazon founder. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So again, my question to you is, what do you want others to say about you when you're not in the room? Jot down whatever comes to mind first, 2 or 3 words. Basically, this session is going to be a brainstorming session. So whatever you write down, you will be able to compile later on, and it will serve you well. The next definition I really like a lot. It says that it is a feeling that those who meet you and work with you, or even hear your name mentioned, experience on that occasion. So they don't have to even see you, not in person. They can just hear your name. So what is the association that people have when they hear your name? How do you want to make them feel when they think about you? Another very important question when you're thinking about how to craft your personal brand. And the last definition here is what you want to be remembered for. Now, I particularly like this one, and this is where I would like to stop and give you one exercise. So even if it may sound a bit weird, please bear with me because there's a point to it. So I'd like you to imagine that you are witnessing your own funeral, say 100 years from now. And at that funeral, someone is reading a eulogy, someone's written an obituary or a eulogy, whatever the right word is. What do you want them to be saying about you? So please take a minute and write down a few words, personal qualities, personal traits. In other words, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as a loving, caring family member? Maybe as a community leader or a passionate volunteer. Maybe there's a cause that you care for so much and you want to make an impact. Maybe you want to be remembered as a successful business person or even a business owner, someone who innovated, who brought something new, who changed an industry or an organization. I really look forward to hearing some of this or seeing it in chat as we go along or discuss at the end of the session. So hopefully with some of these, you have got already your mind open to explore what constitutes your personal brand. And now I would like to move into a few more ways of sort of poking at the same thing, but with a different method. As you know, coaching is all about asking questions and discovering. So you will hear me a lot more asking questions probably today than telling you exactly what to do, but there will be a little bit of telling as well. So what you see here is one of my favorite coaching models. Again, if you listen to other people talking about personal branding, it's not very likely they will bring that in. So that's why I brought it in, because that's part of my brand, to do some stuff that you wouldn't see elsewhere. So ikigai is a Japanese word, and some of you may be familiar with it or not. It stands for your purpose or reason for being. It's what makes you get up in the morning. So ikigai works around identifying 4 key areas, and then in the cross-section of these, you will find your purpose, of your reason for being, or perhaps your motivation to do a particular job or vocation or profession, or maybe to launch a business. So I would like you to ponder just for a minute again, what is it that you love? Just write down 2, 3, 4, 5 things that come to your mind, work-related or unrelated. What do you love? What do you love doing? What do you love doing so much that perhaps you lose track of time when you immerse yourself in that activity? When that happens, it means you're in flow. And guess what? You want to be doing more of the stuff you love and being in flow throughout your life. What does the world need? In other words, what you do and the activity that you're considering, does the world need that? Translated into commercial terms, is there a market need for it? The bottom circle says what you can be paid for. I call this skills that pay the bills. So again, feel free, list 3, 4, 5 or more of your top skills that the world is ready to pay you for. And then we have, what are you good at? Do you have some expertise in this field, maybe a qualification, a certification? What are you good at? This can also be something that other people come to you about. Think about it that way as well. Could be a skill. Think about things that people come to you at work, like when they have a certain problem. Oh, I'll go to her. She can help me with that. What is that? Right. So again, I hope this has given you some opportunity to think around what you love and what you're doing, and whether what you're doing is what you actually love, and are you good at it, and can you be paid for it? As you can see here, if it is something you love and you're good at it, but then it doesn't intersect with these other circles, then this is your passion. But the question is, can you translate that into something that the world needs? If I'm having a conversation with a startup founder, maybe he's coming from here, and then we look at what is his idea or her idea to develop the product or the service that the world needs. On the other hand, you may be really good at something, you are being paid for it, but do you love it? Or is it just a job? Nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, if you're looking for more fulfillment, then you can either look at how you can bring more of what you love into your life while staying in that job or profession, or you can look at how to transition into something that you love more, or perhaps you can merge the two. These are usually the scenarios that I meet with my clients. They could potentially stay in the same industry or role, but bring more of what they love into their life. Or they develop a side business, which then they transition into fully later on, and that's based on their passion. Or maybe they change employment and literally transition from one industry to another. And I'll give you some examples of that in a minute. Moving on, what I've done here is I deconstructed Simon Sinek's why, golden circle. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but he talks about start with why. So it is why, how, and what. And I also would like you to use this model or think about it in terms of, we're having some questions, which I will look at later on. Sorry about that. So going back to why, this is about your values and purpose. And that is closely linked also to what we uncovered in the previous exercises. I will give you one more exercise here, which I believe can be very beneficial to discover your core values. And then once you know your core values, by extension, you can work out your career-related values. That's something I do with my clients all the time. So I'll give you one brief exercise here before we move on. This time, I'd like you to think about a situation where someone upset you, something or someone upset you, and you were really angry, for example. It felt like your blood was boiling. You were so upset. Or maybe you were sad and upset and angry and everything at the same time. Think back at a situation or a person or an event like that. And then write down a few words. How do you describe that person or that event? What was involved? Was it dishonesty and lying, for example? That's why you were upset. Could be injustice. So write down the things or qualities that really upset you. And then at the opposite end of the scale, you will find, guess what? Your core value. Why is that? That is because our core values, I call them non-negotiables, are so important to us that sometimes we're ready to defend them with our own lives. That's why we get upset when someone steps on our core value. So at the other end, you will probably see honesty, transparency. If someone betrayed you, then it will be loyalty and consistency and so forth. So you get the idea. So you can use this exercise many times over and think about those situations when you were really, really upset and what happened. And you will find more often than not that someone or something really stepped on your core value. And then bear in mind those core values when you look for employment or for work, or even when you're starting your business, and make sure that you always honor those values. Yes, in life we need to make compromises, but that's different from compromising your core values. So moving on, how? What makes you special or unique? Now we're coming to the core bit of branding. As we said, branding is about differentiation. So what makes you unique? What makes you different from others? You will often see this or encounter this in interviews where a recruiter will ask you, why should we choose you over another candidate? Why are you an ideal candidate for this position? So to give you an example of this, again, just list whatever first comes to mind. Maybe it's not even work related, but could be leveraged for your work situation. One example is of a client, a lady that I worked with recently. So she's a trained lawyer and she worked in corporate law and particularly specialized in data protection and GDPR. And so when I asked her what is unique about her, what she uncovered, or rather shared with me, was that she was also a trained therapist, because she's always had interest in how humans develop and she likes to help people. So she trained really hard for about 3 or 4 years, and she was seeing patients as well, but then she decided she didn't want to go down that route and went back to law. So now that she started her own consultancy, helping corporate clients with data protection, compliance, and GDPR, she can bring in this seemingly unrelated qualification and practice into the game, because being a trained therapist helped her develop her listening skills fantastically, helped her develop her empathy, and she's able to hear and understand more quickly what it is that the client wants. And that definitely makes her unique and different from, say, other people who are offering this type of consultancy. So I hope this gives you an illustration. If nothing comes to mind right now, don't worry about it. You will most likely develop this as you go through your career, especially if you're early in your career. The last circle is about what, which is what are your products or services if we're looking at a corporate brand. For a personal brand, this will be about what it is that you do. So this is fairly simple. Now I would like to move again into, after this slide, into something quite practical. But just to sum up this part around personal branding, I would like to give you, to my mind, 5 core pillars of a good personal brand, meaning personal brand needs to instill trust, it needs to help you connect, it should showcase your credibility, it should instill confidence in others, whether that's your boss or colleague or a client, and it needs to be authentic. So if you're inspired and you want to work on this, I suggest that as homework for after this session, you look back at your career and your different experiences and you come up with some stories that will actually illustrate how you build trust, how you build connection, how you show credibility, how are you authentic in the way you live your life as a person and as a professional, and how you present yourself. Equally, confidence, how do you inspire confidence in others? Now, this bit around authenticity is something that I really like to go back often, and that is, think about the exercise from the beginning of the session when I asked you to witness your own funeral and hear what it is being said about you. So this links directly to authenticity, because I'd like to invite you to check in often with yourself. Am I authentic? Am I living the life in accordance to my values? Am I living my life in accordance to how I want people to remember me? Because that doesn't happen overnight. You need to start being that person now and start building that person now in order to be remembered for whatever you want to be remembered in many years' time. And this is how your authenticity will shine or come through. This is a piece of research I use, which says that 67% relies on how you act, or gravitas. This is actually how you project your personal brand the most. Again, very important in terms of consistency, authenticity. If you say one thing and do another, guess what? People are not going to appreciate that. People will not trust you. And you will be projecting who knows what kind of a personal brand. So bringing all of this together, you want to work on your personal branding in a conscious and aware way, where you really tune in with your values, with what matters to you, bring together your skills and competencies and strengths. And then from there, you create your value add, which then you actually show through your brand. The funny thing about how you act is, because I love also developmental psychology, neuroscience, and so on. For those of you who may have children, if you do, I don't know how mature the audience is, but you will know that children don't do what you tell them to do. They do what they see you doing. And this is precisely about how you act, or gravitas. Because we model and mirror each other's behaviors. So how you act and what you do is super important when it comes to how others perceive you. Moving on to communication, of course, super important. According to research, apparently it's 28%. So let's say it's about 1/3. So it's about what you say and how you say it. Again, in my coaching, I help my clients with communication, particularly if they have any sort of confidence issue, or perhaps people are misunderstanding them, or there's a wrong perception. That means that maybe they're not really communicating in the best possible way. And believe it or not, only 5% appearance. Sometimes people challenge me on this, some of my clients, but I'd say it really varies. It depends on the industry. If you're in, say, entertainment and fashion and so forth, obviously the percentage of this will be a lot higher. But no matter in which industry you are, how you act and what you do definitely carries the most weight. Right, now this is another practical part that I just promised a few minutes ago, and here we are. Again, I'd like you to take some notes, or rather pen and paper, and we will attempt to create your elevator pitch. So what is an elevator pitch and why do we need it? It's a very, very important part of your personal branding. An elevator pitch, and this is purely my definition, is a succinct and short introduction or summary of who you are, what you stand for, but also what it is that you're about. What kind of work do you do and where do you want to go with it? So I will give you 2 simple formulas to create your elevator pitch. And once you have it, and please bear in mind, this can take a while and you can refine it many times. But once you have it, you can use it on your LinkedIn, on your CV or resume, in interviews, in networking situations when you're introducing yourself to others, online and offline, when pitching to clients. So really, it is something that you should have at your fingertips. So the 2 simple ways of creating an elevator pitch, again, this is not set in stone, but this is what I like to use. The first way is quite simple, and it is this one. It is temporal or linear. So you look at what you've done so far, where are you at right now, and what are you looking to achieve in the future? Some of you may be looking for a new opportunity, in which case you may want to mention it. Or you may want to say that you want to be impacting whatever industry and so forth. So it's more about intention. Make sure that in the first part, you include anything significant, any major keywords that would denote your skills or experience, or highlights. For example, if you won an award or something like that, then you can say an award-winning whatever. So again, bear in mind, what are the most important bits from your past career that you want to put in this pitch? I will give you one example for each way of creating an elevator pitch. The example I'll give you actually is quite unusual. That's why I chose it. This is from a lady who was my client who went through a radical career transition, okay? So working with me, she realized that she really wanted to pursue the love of her life, which was nature conservation and later on marine biology. She never did it before, but always wanted to. So as a result of our coaching, she decided to even take a degree, or rather foundational degree, and then go into sciences so that she could move into that field at the age of 40. And she's loving it. I'm still in touch with her. So anyway, to cut the long story short, her elevator pitch, and we took quite a while to come up with it, was this: an experienced marketing and communications professional in the charity sector, currently retraining in order to pursue my passion for nature conservation. So the reason why I'm using this one is you can see that from her past career, she will be leveraging her transferable skills. She's a marketing and communications professional, and she's had sizable experience. She worked mostly in the charity sector. And then now she's telling us that she's retraining in order to do what? To pursue her passion for nature conservation. It's a very interesting example. For those of you who are not in a radical career transition, this could be a lot simpler. So before I proceed to the next formula, I will let you ponder this and maybe write a sentence or two using this formula. I look forward to seeing some of your elevator pitches if you choose to share them in the chat. And we can look at them at the end of the session. Another formula that I quite like is more of a purpose-driven elevator pitch. So if you remember, we talked a little bit about Ikigai, about your purpose, about what you love. So this is where you go when you create this type of elevator pitch. I see this more often with solopreneurs or people running their small businesses and so forth, or even big businesses. However, I do see it more often with employees as well. So I will give you my own example, and you probably heard it already from Samantha when she was introducing me. My elevator pitch is something along these lines. I help aspiring, conscious, mid-career professionals identify, reach, and retain careers they love. So what I'm doing here is I'm focusing on who am I helping and who do I serve? How am I helping them? So I may add that, and I can say, I'm passionate about helping conscious, aspiring, mid-career professionals identify, reach, and retain careers they love through individual and group career coaching. So this time I've also said how I do that. So you can think about what problem do you help solve as well? And who do you help and how? The example that I chose from someone who actually works for Oracle, I believe, so an employee, again, a past client of mine that uses a little bit of this formula is the following. I help organizations simplify IT with the use of cloud technology. I really like that. That was quite sharp. And you can see in that one-liner pretty much what that person does. Maybe not the details, but it definitely opens up an interest. So someone will want to either read on or ask questions and say, okay, so what specifically do you do with cloud? We're having some questions I'll just touch upon very briefly until some of you are still perhaps writing your crafting your elevator pitch. How can you promote Gravitas virtually, for example, when job searching? This is very interesting, actually. This is a deep question. I would say you can do that by the choice of words that you use, the choice of experiences that you actually choose to share with employers, and bearing in mind that you want your personal brand to be authentic, consistent, to instill trust and confidence in others, you will want to share those career narratives with employers that support that. So this is a very short answer to a big question, but that would be a starting point. Right, as we're coming to the end of time, I need to start wrapping up, and I still have a few slides. So I promised I will mention something around how to embody your brand, which potentially links to the question that I just answered. So in order to do this, first and foremost, you need to have clarity on what's important to you, your core values, your career-related values, your skills, strengths, and competencies, and also how you add value to others, and then walk the talk. In other words, if you are presenting yourself as someone who's trustworthy, transparent, loyal, a good colleague, and so forth, then don't get engaged in gossip and, for example, office politics, because that's not in alignment with what I just said, that you claim to be your personal brand. So bear in mind everything that you've written so far and from these exercises, and see what are those keywords that represent your values and your strengths and your motivations, and make sure that you live them in a day-to-day life. So summing up this bit, you need to be aware or build awareness around what drives you, what your passions are, what you love, what your gifts are. In other words, all your skills and talents and competencies. And then once you've got that, you move into the external or the packaging. Even as part of my coaching process, I call the first phase unwrapping your gifts, where we do a lot of exploration of all of this. And then the middle phase would be qualifying your options. And the final phase is this, which is about packaging. So that is your elevator pitch, that is your LinkedIn, that's your resume, that's your overall personal brand, which you also showcase through your career narratives. Again, huge piece of coaching work I do with my clients. You also showcase it during interviews and throughout the application process. Another thing I promised very briefly is to give you some pointers on how you can audit your personal brand. So let's say you've gone through most of what we covered and you're quite happy with what you've got, but you want to check whether that is resonating, whether it's true, what's being perceived out there. So the first thing is very simple. Have you Googled your name recently or at all? When you go to other coaches' personal branding presentations, you will get a lot about this. That's why I don't go into much depth here. But suffice to say, Google yourself, see what comes up. You'll be surprised by the percentage of employers that discontinue your application if they find things on social media that do not represent you in a good light. So make sure that whatever comes up as a result linked to you and your name and your profile is something that you want anyone and everyone to see. Have you published online content? Now, this is very valuable if you want to boost your visibility and push your position towards the, either first page of Google or, again, depending on your name and how much you've done online, it depends on where you will appear. But if you publish high quality content, it is likely that you will be in some of the top results. That could be your blog, that could be YouTube content. Maybe you're passionate about something, you have a hobby, could be related to your work or not, as long as it's in accordance with your personal brand. Maybe you publish papers. Maybe you're very active on LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, I'll just very briefly mention I'm running a LinkedIn masterclass tomorrow, part 1, and Monday, part 2, with a LinkedIn trainer, and it's going to be fabulous. And in the first bit, we actually build your LinkedIn profile, and in the second part of training, we'll look at exactly this, what to write about. A lot of people are lost. So we'll be generating ideas around what you can write about and what you can publish online. Another thing, what can you do to review is what themes come up as your expertise at work. Everyone has at least once a year a review, a performance assessment, maybe even more often. What are the bits that you're getting kudos for? What is it that people appreciate in you? This will be part of your expertise, and that's obviously, that takes a prominent place in your personal brand. Ask your network, very important, ask people. As part of my coaching process, I have a 360 feedback form, which is not a typical corporate 360 that you would use at work, but I use it in a different way, where my clients ask lots of different people from their network, not just from work, to answer questions that will then help them specifically with this. And then based on all of this, you can review and adjust. So we have come to the end of my presentation. It took slightly longer. I would like you to write down what you would like to implement from what you have learned. 1, 2, or even more actions, but be very specific. Remember, it's terrific to be specific. So what are you going to do first and foremost as a result of today's session? I would love to see some comments. I think there's a lot happening in Q&A as well. Okay, someone is asking about how they move to a different industry. If you see that the industry or the environment is not right for you, then you need to do a lot of research about what it is that is right for you, and then develop these career narratives showcasing your top skills, transferable skills, and gradually move. But it's a long haul process. And that's what I do with my clients. I help them in career transitions and career development. So I hope I will see some shares. I just have one more slide, which is to say thank you so much for being here. And I hope you enjoy this. I really look forward to seeing your actions. And I just want to mention that Samantha will also be sharing this link, which is a link to my masterclasses. I run them once a month. Personal branding, networking, interview success. They are finished for June, but as I mentioned, LinkedIn is not. It's happening tomorrow evening UK time, which is midday your time. In case you're interested, by all means, I would invite you to consider coming. And the part 2 is next Monday, so it will be literally midday, 1 p.m. for East Coast time. If, on the other hand, you feel like you don't know what to do, you're at crossroads, you're a bit lost, you think you want to change something, you don't know even what, then by all means, please email me and you will be able to book a free career assessment, a confidential consultation with me, and then you could consider either one-to-one or group coaching with me. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Elena. We had a lot of people in the chat talking about what they're going to be doing next. Looks like the biggest thing is working on their elevator pitches, but we have reviewing external packaging for consistency, making sure it projects my values from Patty. Somebody said I need to push myself out there by creating some more useful content. Laura said I'm going to be working on my why and how to define my elevator pitch, updating my elevator pitch, defining my core values. So it looks like we have a lot of great next steps coming in. So thank you everyone for engaging in the chat there. Feel free to keep writing in. But we had an interesting question come in. Although before I jump into the questions, I know a few people asked about the LinkedIn classes and Elena's masterclasses. Again, I'll be including that information in the follow-up email going out later today. So you'll get it there.
Brilliant.
But an interesting question from Violet here. She asked, is it better to have a small online presence or a bigger one?
Okay, well, it really depends on what you do. I would say it depends on the role and the industry and what you're trying to achieve. As long as it is consistent, it doesn't matter how big or how small. Obviously, if you're running your own business, I can only speak from personal example. Yes, I'm investing a lot of time, money, effort, you name it, in my own visibility, because that brings me opportunity to reach out to people and further develop my business. I've had clients, I still have actually that client, he's coming back to work with me. who is in a very prestigious hedge fund. And that type of environment is quite closed and not a lot of people use LinkedIn, and it's a little bit secretive, call it old school. So I've worked with him to develop his personal brand and his LinkedIn profile in such a way that he's still noticed and open for opportunities, but that it's not in any way compromising his current position.
Yeah, that's a great point to make. I had a professor likewise who worked in crisis management. When you're working in crisis, he always said, you know, I do my job the best because no one knows my name. So it's an interesting industry. So it definitely depends on what you want to work in. Interesting question from Allison here. Any tips on how to address or repair any sort of damage to your personal brand?
Okay, well, I would first, I'll have to wonder what kind of damage that is. I would need to know a little bit more specifics to be able to answer this in a meaningful way. Often and I'm just fishing here because I don't know, but I often see clients who have their own perception of what has happened and they carry it with them. So when people come to me who have a gap in their career, it's fine. Everyone has a gap. We're all humans. I don't know anyone, no matter how stellar their career was, that they always went just up and up and up and nothing ever happened. No, everyone's been made redundant at least once. Everyone's had the boss from hell at least once. You know, it's life, it's normal. So I don't know what happened in your particular instance, but whatever that experience was, the key thing is how you feel about it and what you think about it, because that's what's going to be projected. So I work with clients often on, you know, they may have been made redundant or they literally had the trauma at work. So we work on releasing and healing that, by which then they regain their confidence and then they're able to present themselves. I hope this helps.
We have another question here from Priyanka, which I hear a lot from people, so I think it's going to be interesting. She says she struggles with kind of finding what makes her unique and her unique skills. She asks if you can provide examples of unique skills, but I think the better question is more, how can you take skills that maybe 50% of the population has and make them unique to you?
Right. It's a very good question. It really, really depends on who you are as a person, what you love doing. I can only speak of what I've heard from different clients. I had a lady who is a finance director, an accountant by training, also had an MBA. But you wouldn't know unless you start talking to her that she's very passionate about trekking and hiking, and she climbed Kilimanjaro, she swims competitively, and as a result of all of that, because she's so devoted to health and fitness, she actually started her side business, which is developing a healthy drink. This is something she will transition into later on while she's still working in finance. So what is that? That is unique about her. And she can talk about her resilience, about her stamina, about her drive, about not giving up. I mean, all of these things come from extracurricular activities, but you can bring anything really into your personal brand and how you present with regards to your work or career if you find that link. So think first and foremost what it is that you really love, what you're passionate about, what you can't wait to do, and then just go into it and become the best in it, the best you can be. And from there, you will have stories and things that you can, you know, bring into this, what's unique about me.
Yeah, I really like that example too, because it's something that I think a lot of people are interested in health and wellness, but then she goes and has these really unique outcomes, so to say, which is how she's turned something that might be pretty commonplace, but made it so unique to her personality and who she is. That's a great example.
Thank you.
Question here from Nancy. How do you weave your personal brand into your resume?
Good question. Right. I do a webinar from time to time also on called CV or Resume Interview Impact. And I talk about something called meta impression. This is the overall impression that you actually project as a person. So again, consistency and authenticity, very important. So your resume needs to be in sync with your LinkedIn profile, and you need to look at the choice of words, as I mentioned before, and see what are the key words that represent you and what you do and what you care for. And then start arranging that in your resume, making sure that this is how people find you. Much like people find you through certain keywords on LinkedIn, you need to have that in your resume as well, because subconsciously and consciously, this will trigger certain responses in whoever is reading that. Unless it's a machine. For application tracker system, I can't comment. That's a different story.
In that case, just pick out those key robot words and use them.
Yeah.
Interesting question from Davina here. Do you have any books or I guess articles that you suggest one reads to finding more about Ikigai?
Yes. I loved a book called Ikigai by two Spanish researchers. You will find it on Amazon. I think they're Frances Morales and Hector something. I apologize for not having the name right in front of me. But if you go into Amazon Books and you type in Ikigai, it will come as first one. It's a lovely book which they actually started the research based on researching longevity and trying to find out why some people live long, healthy, happy, disability-free lives. And there are pockets of such populations, and one such in the world, and one such population is in Okinawa in Japan. And that's where they went and researched and found that those people live with purpose, they move daily, and yes, it's about healthy eating, this, that, and the other, but it's first and foremost about this sense of purpose and optimism and being happy every day for being alive, basically. Great.
And then we'll leave off on this last question, which I know you've touched on before, but we've had it come in 3 or 4 times now. People are asking a lot about how you can rebrand if you're switching industries. So I'd love if you could share that example of your client who did the Nature Conservancy. You could reshare her statement and just kind of pick out and highlight why that works so well. I think it's a really great example for people to take and kind of rework into their own situation.
Sure, of course. So this particular client, her elevator pitch is an experienced marketing and communications professional in the charity sector, currently retraining in order to pursue my passion for nature conservation. Even if you're not currently retraining, you can still experiment with bringing in both the keywords for the industry or role you're in, together with those keywords of roles or industries that you want to move in. And then see what links them, what underpins them, what value or what skill, and then mesh it up together.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much once again, and thank you to everybody who joined us here today.
Thank you. And again, thank you for everyone joining. I could see some LinkedIn requests. Could I just suggest that you all connect with me on LinkedIn, because I'm not sure that I'll reach everyone in the chat. You will find me as Jelena, Jelena Radonic. You will get my details as well through the email. So I look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn and helping you some further. Thank you.
Yes, be on the lookout for all that information later today. And in the meantime, have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.